Welcome to Hello Kind Soul Podcast, where we raise the vibration of kindness on a global scale. I'm Dr. Ebony Green, your host, and I'm super excited to be with you today. If you want to follow us on all major platforms, look us up at Hello Kind Soul Podcast. And if you want to follow me, look me up at eGreen Equity. I hope you enjoy the episode. Have a great day. Welcome to Hello Kind Soul Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ebony Green, and today we have in the building the amazing, the brilliant Chanel Ward.
Dr. Green.
I'm so excited for you to be here.
Thrilled.
Chanel, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump in.
Happy Friday.
Indeed.
Thrilled to start my day with you. You are a powerhouse. I'm so excited to be here. But Chanel, mom, friend, life partner, explorer, and a social justice warrior, right? That could get a little tricky these days, but
Indeed.
I show up in truth.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Man, I'm so grateful for you to be here. One of the things that the audience doesn't know, but we know, is that we've been in communication with each other for almost a decade, probably longer.
Wild.
And the wonderful thing about our conversations is I always feel like it's like getting a hug from the ancestors, right? Like we come in community and we tell the truth. And that's been something that I think has been lost, right? The value of individuals bringing their collective brilliance to the space.
Yeah.
And so with the Hello Kind Soul Podcast, really focus around like healing and truth and being vulnerable and all the things. And so I guess a good question to start is, can you be kind if you're not working on your heart posture?
Oh, heart posture. Fancy.
I've been working on that.
Listen, I think that kindness is a value, and kindness is a personal journey, right? I would say that like my relationship with kindness probably started, witnessing my parents in service-facing positions, right? Whether it was my mom supporting, kids that went through the Head Start program, right? Whose earlier days, there were unique challenges in their home, right? Whether they were financially, whether they're, based on kind of who the caretakers were and their own mental capabilities or capacities, right? So really seeing her acknowledge, like, girl, you gotta eat that food on your plate. Because some of the kids I work with don't have this, right? And you're going to be grateful. Even if we don't have a lot, you're going to be grateful. And we're going to be kind, right? And then also seeing my father do the same thing. And my father is like, the guy that anyone can ask, hey, can you give me a ride here? Can you do? And it's always yes, right? And then as a young person, feeling the imprint that their kindness made on the community really allowed me to see the respect and regard that they received because of their kindness, right? So the tenure was, in exchange for kindness, you're safe. Right? So I was like, that's kind of cool. And I like making people feel good and making people feel comfortable because people are their best when they're in environments where they feel safe, right? And when you feel safe, you're more likely to be kind, right? So I think that it's not always easy to be kind, right? If your heart hasn't been taken care of, right? So what has your environment been, right, that has impacted your heart posture, right? And we don't have complete control over our environments. None of us do, right? But we do have choices. That's one of my mantras. We all got choices.
Indeed.
We all got choices, right? So how does my heart feel when I respond in a not so kind way versus how my heart feels when I do respond in a kind way, right? And I think I've been able to assess that over some time. And it's like, kindness doesn't cost me much, but it offers me a great deal in return.
Wow. Yeah. You know what? And it's interesting because you said, like, your parents basically did things for the community for no reason at all. And I feel like we're living in a really transactional society, which is quite disturbing. I wonder, do people realize that very question you asked? Like, what does it feel like in your body when you are unkind or you aren't nice, right? And that requires a level of self-awareness. And so it leads me to this idea of like, what is the healing process to be able to feel that in your body? Because I think a lot of people don't realize, like and I had an episode that I talked about, like, we intellectualize things a lot. So like I intellectualize being kind, I intellectualize being caring, but I don't actually do it for real. So like, what's the healing work? What are your thoughts about, like, how do you heal to the place that you can feel or be aware enough to wonder, how does it feel when I'm kind?
Yeah.
What does it feel when I love people deeply? What does that come up? What comes up for me?
Let me get my posture together because we about to dig in. I think a part of my kindness journey came from my feeling of folks being unkind to me, right? So as a younger person, dealt with terrible acne, to the point where I remember being young and someone, some girl walking past me is like, if my face looked like that, I'd kill myself. And I'd be like, God damn, or just me being incredibly having this range of emotional intelligence that I didn't know what to do with. And I didn't see it as intelligence when I was younger. I just saw it as me being overly emotional, right? And my mom kind of doubled down on that, like, girl, get it together. No one has time for all these emotions, right? So I spent a lot of time alone in chosen solitude, trying to make meaning of the experience I was having in relation to other folks, right? Because I think just innately, I've always yearned for and preferred authentic connections, right? And probably because they I can feel them vibrate in a way where I feel safe.
Yeah.
Right? When things are superficial, I'm like, close, shut, have a good day. Right? When things feel authentic, I'm like, let's dig in. How are you? What's good? What's going on? Where's your joy? Right? I want to celebrate those things. So I think we all have choices, and we can all choose to stop and be more aware and observe how we feel, right? And how those feelings impact our ability to show up and offer kindness, right? So I feel responsible to be self-aware enough to be like, yo, I'm not going to be my best today. Let's maybe reschedule this, right? We all have access to our internal truth. Each and every one of us. If we choose to tap in, fantastic. You're going to go on a journey. If you choose not to tap in, your choice, but there's probably going to be a lot of frustration that comes from misunderstanding of self.
Man. You said when you meet people and you can tell that it's surface, you just shut down.
That's why we clicked. I was like, oh, she's a homie.
100%, right. And I do the same. Like, you could just feel it. And I think for many people, I think everyone is born with an intuitive sense. I think a lot of people don't listen to it.
Facts.
And it takes them down roads and paths that literally become rabbit holes. So when did you get to the place where you started to listen to that internal compass, that internal voice, that internal guide?
Damn, that's deep. And I'm a processor. So this answer is not going to be the answer.
Got it.
If you know what I mean. I think, ask the question again. Let me sit with it.
So like when I meet someone, I intuitively know it's either a yes or a no. And now I just listen.
Yeah.
But it took me years to get to the place where I could trust the voice, the feeling, the vision.
Yeah.
When did you get to that place where you started to really let your spirit, the internal guide lead?
Yeah.
Who and whose rooms you enter and whose rooms?
I love that. I'm grateful for the discernment to be still so that I could really call on a moment. And my answers were like, girl, boom, here, this is what it was. So I would say after undergrad, which was an interesting experience for me. I never really felt like my peers were like the social group for me. I always found greater interest in folks that were older than me. Like wisdom was something I actively sought, and I didn't necessarily feel like it was in abundance in my peer group. Right.
Yeah.
So, I would be the one that, instead of partying on the weekends, I'd be in my dorm room writing poetry with candles, and people would be like, "You're all right, girl?" And I'm like, "I'm fine. Like, I'm good. You good?" I wish I had the confidence to say that. Are you good? Because I'm good. But maneuvering through kind of those social spaces and finding confidence that my voice and my intellect held some weight, right? That like there were other folks that could resonate, that there were folks that could relate. And oftentimes, the more that I just kind of gave myself permission to speak up, then those folks would find me and be like, "Yeah, I feel that." Right. And I'd be like, "Okay, there's some validity in this for me and perhaps for others." And that was encouraging for me. And because I come from a service-driven family, I'm like, shit, if this is a way for me to help myself and help others, that's a win-win. Really, when it came to me is, and this is going to kind of move towards some, my spiritual journey, specifically with angels. I remember coming home after undergrad, and it wasn't like, "Yay, you graduated." It was like, I'm in a miserable corporate job. I was a headhunter for a software company. People were getting pencils chucked at them across the room. People were coming home, going to lunch and negotiating whether or not they were going back to the office. Like, it was wild. And I was in a dark place. I would wake up in the morning. It would be dark. I would come home. It would be dark. And I was like, yo, this is not right. Something's not right. So I went back home. My mom was in tuned enough to know that, like, all right, you need to reset. And I just figured a safe environment would help me recalibrate. In doing so, I remember these synchronicities that I would see all the time. 111, 222, 333. Many folks in the spiritual world would understand them as angel numbers, but they freaked me the fuck out. I was like, it was everywhere. Like, it was like I would make a sandwich and the deli cheese was cut at 111. I would be driving in this, I'd stop by the house and be like 1111. And I'm just like, yo, is this weird? Right. And then I got settled, and then I recognized and learned what those numbers meant. And then I was able to connect, where I was at in my life with what those messages were. And that gave me confidence, right? It gave me confidence to know that it's not humans running this shit.
That part. That part.
It's like, oh, hallelujah. Because I haven't been able to relate to these motherfuckers for a while. Yes. Let's go. I feel supported. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that, my experience there helped me to sit more comfortably in recognizing that I am connected to a source, and that source has nothing but love for me to spread goodness. And I don't need to be, that's all the reinforcement that I need. I don't need it from humans.
It's interesting you say that, because it started to make me think about like people who are starseeds or, highly intuitive beings or empaths or clairvoyant, right? And it always makes me laugh at how much those people live on the edge of acceptable society, right? And it's less about like, the labels you wear, but it's more about you never really feeling comfortable in crowds of people with no meaning, or instead of being in the club, you're in the room, like doing poetry or, having poetry slam, whatever. How did you come to accept that you were here for a really special reason? And part and parcel of that is that you somewhat walk on the edge because you're not a person that's okay with like surface conversations, transactional living, extra fads, like all those things seem so menial or trivial to people who are gifted or here to do like greater, higher things in the world?
Yeah. I think that the more that I found confidence in my voice, I realized, so the funny part is I went to school to be a singer. Like I went to school to study voice and music, right? Like in doing so, I realized that I was there to find my voice, but not like my singing voice.
That part.
Yeah. And it's like, it's always close enough if you're open to it, right? Like you're going to be on the right path, but with an awareness and an openness to guidance, you're going to get clarity, right? So I think the more that I would just chat with folks would naturally feel connected or want to learn more or come to me for guidance, or, I would represent safety for them or a safe space for them. And I think the more that I saw that as a pattern, the more that I realized that I did have a purpose to help people not feel the way that I did.
That part.
When I was younger, isolated, misunderstood, right? Like I was actually just talking about this on a panel where it's like one of my qualities as a professional in corporate America is like, I want to be the most approachable. That's a signature of mine. I want to be the most approachable, no matter what you're going through, no matter how you feel, no matter how crazy you think it is. Me, when you talk to me and you're in my space, that represents peace and safety. I'm available to you. I'm available to listen. I'm available to make space, right? So I think the more that I kind of leaned into that, the more I'm like, oh, I can't play because I don't see a lot of this in the world. I needed it. I know it meant a lot of people that could have used it. And I see how in demand it is. That's who you are to so many people too. You know what I mean? And it's labor. It is labor. It can be labor intensive at times, but that's the sacrifice I'm willing to make because I do feel like my purpose is intrinsically connected with allowing people to be who they are, all of who they are, bringing all their intersectionality identities to the table and feeling safe and comfortable. Because you know what, when we don't feel safe or comfortable, we can't explore. And when we can't explore, we can't get to know ourselves. When we don't know ourselves, we can't fulfill our purpose here.
Well, it's funny you say that because I think that's part of the work, right? I think that's part of the insanity we're watching, right? If we keep people the furthest away from their purpose, then they're not a threat. And y'all, we're not talking about surface 3D stuff. Like we're talking about everyone. I argue that everybody was born to do something epic, and based on their circumstances and situations, who they grew up around, how they experienced familiar connections, community, all of that. Some folks have been redirected. And that redirection is awful. And it's awful because
it's by design as well.
100%.
Yeah.
Like there's so many people that take great delight in the harming or hurting of people. And it always makes me, the question I ask, which I laugh, I'm smiling because when people do really unkind things in my presence or say stuff, I'm always like, who hurt you?
Word.
And they don't know what to do with that. Because they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, for you to be this comfortable being this rude makes me believe that there's a part of you that at some point has been hurt this much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, your point of like, never wanting someone to feel what you felt, which is literally how I got like, Hello Kind Soul came to life because I, like you, understand the pain that sits with being on the edge.
Word.
Now I realize like being on the edge has benefits. It means I don't have to conform. It means I don't have to agree to stuff that I don't believe in. It means I don't have to sell out. Like there is no compromise when I have values and integrity. Like we're not compromising those. Like that's the full no, right?
Yes.
What is your advice for people who are still on the fringe and don't realize that's a superpower? Like being able to walk outside and color outside the lines is the gift, is the superpower to achieve your greatest level of actualization. But right now in their life, they don't see that. They see themselves as a misfit or not in the right place or misaligned to the norms. And the norm is really just redefined as comfort. And that comfort becomes complacency. So what is your advice to people who don't realize that coloring outside the lines and being outside of that quote unquote ideal norm
Yeah.
is actually a superpower that they can leverage.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say that the norms were comfort and complacency for me when I was younger. I think the norms now are like being addicted to distractions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that is a norm right now that I am also actively working to disentangle myself from, right? Like, intentionally offloading social media apps incrementally so that I can give myself a moment to observe what life feels like without social media. Right. And not like in a way that's organic for me, you know. I would say there was this one quote that's driven me, right? Because, you know, I grew up in a home where kind of one parent's idea of success was like very material. And another parent's version of success was like, if we got food and each other, we're good. Right. And that felt very wholesome to me. And I think, so I've always been trying to figure out kind of what my definition of success is. And one definition that always stuck with me, I must have heard this maybe at this point, like 20 years ago, which is wild. Like, this person said that he defined success, like his measure of success for himself on his last day of life will be how well he got to know himself during this time. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. I'm for that. Like, because when I know myself, you can't rock me. You can't shake me. I can observe my responses and I can observe yours, but I'm going to be really well situated and planted. And I would say for those that are on the edge, if you will, give yourself time, give yourself grace, allow yourself to assess what feels good about that locale, that location, and what hurts. Because you also have to speak truth to the pain too. Like, yeah, there were times where it hurt that I didn't feel like I was a part of an in-group, but I had to also ask myself, what would I be sacrificing if I forced that? How much of myself would I lose if I forced that? I also think my own relationship in therapy, I'm a major proponent of mental health. I've spent years assessing my relationship with performing.
Y'all, it's a masterclass.
I can't. Who am I performing for? Who taught me this performance? Who said this performance was valuable? Like, do I like how I'm performing? Do I like my own fucking show? You know what I'm saying? If I don't want to watch my show, I need to pause the production and I need to get still. And I need to, really give myself space to understand how I want to show up, what I would want to see in the future. And I need to direct my efforts in those directions.
Man, do I like my performance? We might have to bleep that, y'all. Because I said it really slow. Like, you said it in flow. I just broke it down. Like, I've never heard anybody think about that way. Like, we've talked about performing on the show, but we haven't talked about evaluating your performance. Because here's the thing. The best part of us happens when we stop performing. When we just crash out and we're like, we're done.
Liberation arrives.
Right? Like, I'm just going to be me. And y'all are either love me or not. And I'm okay with that. I want to go back to this point that, like, I've been in many situations, I'm sure you have too, where you see people sort of upset that you're calm in their insanity. And so you have learned to kind of be still in that. And that actually shakes people when you're unshakable, when you can be in spaces that are highly toxic and you're just cool.
Yeah.
How did you get to that place where people can't shake your faith?
Ooh, I think my assessment of like my performance and where it came from and, that journey that I've been on has required me to analyze my own relationship with self-worth. Like, what am I worthy of? And I think the more that I invest in my own mental health and well-being, I'm worthy of peace. And I think one element of, one way I do that is constantly assess what brings me peace and what doesn't bring me peace. And sometimes my irrational responses in the past didn't bring me peace because there was shit to clean up after that.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Oh boy. All right. Now I need to go back. I need to own what I did. I need to reflect on that. I need to be vigilant. Right. But what's always available to us is stillness and time. I don't have to react. You don't have to react. In fact, we have all the space we need to think about what we need in this moment and come back and talk about it. That's how I choose to show up. If you choose not to show up, that's completely on you. You know what another thing was too? Like separating my stuff from other people's stuff. Because as an empath and as someone who, many people come to you, it's sometimes hard to figure out, like, is that your stuff or is that my stuff? So I had to be really vigilant to be like, nah, I can't carry that with you because I'm not going to be a bag lady. Like, I want to travel real light. You know what I'm saying? So
we're not checking baggage, y'all. We're taking it on the plane.
Yo.
We need the small suitcase.
Serious, small essentials. That's it. So I think in those moments, I realized that what was the most powerful was for me to model sometimes the things that would bring me peace. If things are going to be crazy and I need peace, I can control it. I can control internally as much as that's possible, And for folks that have a problem with that, I would lean on Mel Robbins right now and in her let them theory, let them have a problem. That's theirs to have. Just like it's my option, right? We all got choices. Their choice, for probably very valid reasons, is to show up in one particular way. My choice is not. If they're having a response to my choice, that actually provides them with opportunity to be more reflective around why they chose to show up in that way. Let me be the constant, right? Let me be the constant so that people around me can be more deeply reflective. I don't argue with people. I don't go back and forth with folks. I'm going to be still. And in my stillness, if you learn something about you, fantastic. If not, fantastic.
Man, listen, I could talk to you all day, but I feel like we're going to have to do a part 2, y'all, because she's dope. I told you. I'm bringing you the best I got.
Birds of a feather.
Listen, I hope they paying attention. You got your notebook out. You good? So we're going to wrap up soon, but there's always 2 questions we ask.
Ooh, fun.
Before we leave.
Okay.
The first one is, what does it mean to be a kind soul?
Okay. To me, what it means to be a kind soul is to accept the responsibility to be aware on a daily basis, to be aware of the impact that you have on others, to be aware of the impact that you have on yourselves, and to just try your best to be as available to the needs, the experiences, the feelings of others while reconciling and balancing your needs, right? So, to be a kind soul is to be there, to be present, right? And also infuse some joy into spaces, right? Like joy and kindness, they got a good relationship, So I'll stop there. Yeah.
So the second question, and that was an amazing answer, by the way. So we have a lot of folks who have started to heal in private, and they don't always tell people or feel safe to tell people how they're feeling or what they need. And so one thing we try to do is to bring people here who can help people, inspire people, motivate people, educate people, provide people sources of information for them to continue on their journey. So right now, someone who's watching this podcast needs a word from you.
Yeah.
Because they're going through stuff that we don't actually know what it is, but they need that support. So you have your camera is right here. So talk to the person out there who needs to hear from you today so that they can continue to heal and to grow and to move in the right direction towards their best self.
Yeah. So I've got a story, y'all. There was a time where a family member was a bit dysregulated and needed to move in with us last minute. Y'all have learned how much peace means to me. My home is like my temple. So having kind of our space immediately, abruptly impacted was hard for me, right? And this person's rebuttal was, don't be frustrated. This is temporary. Of course, in the moment, I couldn't hear it. Like, I could not hear that. But it's been such a lesson for me. And I want you to know that whatever it is that you're going through, the season, the moment, it came to pass. It's temporary. So in this moment, in this season, be still and get curious about perhaps what lesson you are meant to learn in this season, because the sun will come. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And we always have an opportunity to leverage the best parts of ourselves when our chips are down. That's always available to us. So be still, be kind, give yourself some grace. Don't expect too much from yourself in these challenging seasons. And be prepared for the goodness that's coming, right? Because that brings a little joy into the picture.
Chanel Ward, y'all. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
For joining us today. And we will have a part 2 because we could talk all day about various topics.
Yeah.
But for now, I hope you guys have an amazing day. Do not let anyone take the J out your joy. Follow us on all social media platforms and make sure that you tune in to next week's episode. Have an amazing day, y'all. Take care. Peace.
Peace.